Welcome to my channel. This is my channel that I started to promote my graphic memoir. It is December 27th. You know, this is my favorite time of year, right in between Christmas and New Year's, right in between the holidays. It just feels like everybody is just completely relaxed and they're enjoying their last days off before the new year starts, and we all have to get on that energizer treadmill of life. So this is just a final couple of days that we can kind of relax before the new year starts. So this is my favorite time of year. So I wanted, and it's kind of overcast and ugly even though I live in Northern California, I am going to review this book today, The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. And the adaptation is by Kristina Gehrmann. And I really thoroughly enjoyed this book. This channel is about graphic memoirs. I review the ones that I like, health and fitness information, caregiving. I took care of my mother. That's what my book is all about. My book is called Mom Remembers Me, of how I use my health and fitness knowledge to stop my mother with mild dementia from forgetting me. This chapter is also about art. I just finished my January Plan With Me Yogi Bear theme. Go check that out. I had a fun time drawing Yogi Bear and Boo Boo. And then also I had a challenge in that video. If you know your classic cartoons, see if you know something. But go check out that video. And here I am reviewing The Jungle. So, The Jungle is a classic book. I've actually heard of it before. And this was a really good history lesson. It's a really good history lesson. It does mention socialism, and I'm not quite sure I understand what any of the political Marxist versus means and everything. Even though I'm 58, I really would wonder how many people really do. Anyways, this had a good ending. I like the ending because even though they had a lot of challenges and a lot of people in America, they were from Lithuania, even though a lot of people in America took advantage of them, but people in America take advantage of everybody. The bad people, the bad Americans, the bad people that were born here, whatever we want to call them, they take advantage of everybody, no matter where you're from. So I started off reading this book, since I read a lot of books to steal ideas for my graphic memoir, so just like everybody, if you want to get better at something, you copy somebody else's. But of course, you give that person credit that's due. So I did copy one picture in here into my sketchbook, and I have it in the other room, so I can't show you right now. But here we go. The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. So this starts off, this is a story about a family of about 5 people that moved to America. They come over on a boat, and they go through Ellis Island. And I have read that if you have the same last name as somebody, my uncle did a whole bunch of research. If you have the same last name as somebody, you're related, because going through Ellis Island, they didn't care, so they didn't make sure. So this teaches what happened in the slaughterhouses and what happened for the rich to stay richer. And they worked hard, and of course, every single step of the way, they had something happen. So this was a good, really good, like I said, really good history lesson. So, oh yeah, so this is I wrote some questions to myself. So if anybody has studied this for school, and your teacher went over it, and maybe you didn't know that this book had a graphic adaptation. So you can't just read this book. You have to also read the textbook of any book. It'll give you a solid understanding of it, but this helps. So I wrote a question to myself. Why did they give free tours back then of the slaughterhouse? It seems now they don't give tours of the slaughterhouses, but back then they didn't have PETA trying to stop and protect the animals. So it's kind of interesting. So this was before he got the job at the slaughterhouse, he was actually had to sweep all the waste down this hole here. So this was what happened during the tour. So, and I wrote myself just a good gratitude lesson. You know, when life gets tough, they were really grateful just to get into a 2-room building, and they had heat in there and water. They didn't even have running water, and they had an outdoor outhouse. But the art was good in this, even though it was black and white. There's some red. I do prefer color, but the art was excellent by Kristina Gehrmann. So great job. And this book is never confusing too. So if you're ever confused about the textbook, what happens, I would highly recommend you read this to understand the whole storyline. But this adaptation was great. And then she also did chapter endings, which I always seemed frustrated when I started. I'm a avid reader my entire life, but started reading graphic books, and a lot of times it just feels like one big run-on sentence. There's no end of a chapter. In this book, Kristina did end of the chapter, so I'm going to copy this guy's face and put this into my journal. I like his facial expression, so whenever I like facial expressions, probably not usually with superheroes or crazy creatures of superheroes, because I don't read those books. I read books that I can learn from. I guess if anybody does read the superheroes and you feel like you've learned a lot from them, please, by all means, leave me a comment. I don't really believe like I learn anything from reading the superhero sci-fi fantasy. I learned from these history books. So this was his expression was good. And they even were careful. They even tried to find a lawyer to look over the contract for their house, but they ended up not finding a good lawyer that didn't tell them the truth, and then they ended up did lose their house because they weren't able to pay all the interest that was snuck into the contract. But this is and then he ended up having to work at the fertilizer plant, so he smelled atrocious, but he couldn't get the smell off. So here he is trying, and then his wife had to work in a brothel. So and then there's some really good pictures in this book of old time catalogs like Sears and Roebuck. I remember when I was little looking through a Sears Roebuck catalog. That was what we did, right? So then I wanted to show you, like, look at his expressions here. Oh, and then here's I should put alert on here about if you want to see any dead animals. I usually don't have a problem with it, but since it's drawing, if it was real pictures of dead cows, I would have a problem with it. But since it's pictures, oh yeah, I left that there because I want to copy his expression. If you guys are wondering what I was doing there. So this was the main character, Georges. He was a good guy. He tried really hard. So, and then we move up here. So they get married. So they still got married, and then they had a baby, which made life a little more difficult, have another mouth to feed. But that's the way of the world, right? We have to keep procreating. This was a good art too. And then see, they got married. They're all playing instruments. The flutes. Anybody know what instruments those are? I think the flutes. They went all out. This was good. Oh, and then unfortunately he was her boss that made her become a prostitute. He went and punched him, and then of course he lied to the judge. And then he was put in jail for a couple of months. I copied his expression already into my journal, so I want to copy that. But thanks for listening. I'm not going to tell you that the ending has a good happy ending. So if you don't like, sometimes I get tired of these history lessons that have everything they get taken advantage of and everything bad happens. But this has a good happy ending, so I would definitely recommend. And this version of this book is very good. Easy to understand, good art. Thanks for listening. If you could like and subscribe, and especially leave me a comment, I would really appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. See you in the next one.